Okay, so now we're going to invite Yoav Markievicz, who was the former head of growth for Waze, to share a little bit of the secret magic of how you take a company like that and grow what felt like so quickly, but may not have felt quite that quick from inside.
Everyone can hear me? I'm good? Okay. So when Dalia told me I'm going to have, each of us had about 15 minutes, it's not a lot of time, and I thought about what I can give to try to let you take something concrete from my time, something that you can hopefully use, and because it's not a lot of time, I'm going to talk about one thing the whole 15 minutes. It's one principle I believe is one of the most important things to help you grow a company, maybe the most important one. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the high-level principle, but the second thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to dive into some concrete examples, show you some tactics. What I'm trying to do is both maybe some of those tactics can help you, and the second thing is to really show you through example how you practice the principles. So it's also an example of what it is. So a little bit about me. I've been an entrepreneur 3 times. My first company was right out of the Technion. I was a teaching assistant, and I built for my own course at computer science a platform to manage grades. And it kind of picked up, and the whole Technion really liked it. So me and my soon-to-be partner decided, hey, let's open a company. We bootstrapped it, and to fund it, we actually sold projects to clients. And fast forward 4 years later, we had a very successful company providing services. We put all the money into the product, or most of it, and the product, we sold it, but it didn't make any money. We practically made almost every business mistake possible. It's a great fuck-up night lecture. And so we decided to sell the service business, which we were less interested in, close shop on the product. I later established IMED, which is a health portal for the Israeli market. I partnered with some of the largest publishers here. We started to generate revenues very quickly. And after a year and a half, we sold it to Infomed, which was the largest portal in Israel back then. Later on, I opened My Heroes. My Heroes is an app that lets you have recommendations for service providers from friends. We're going to talk about My Heroes a little bit later on. I also got the chance to work at some organizations. Inside organizations, I was leading the main product of Zoom Information, which is a B2B business information database. Revenues from 4 million, it grew to about 30 million. Was managing also what was called the toolbar division at Conduit, which was a different stage of a company. And on that time, the toolbar business, it's a toolbar, but it's still a product, was growing from 50 million monthly active to more than 300 million, generating more than $200 million. So really, I had an opportunity to see a company at hypergrowth and really at the later stages of growth. And my last tenure was at Google, where I headed the growth of Waze for both the navigation app and the newer carpool app. So enough about me. Do you know this guy? Anyone? Paul Graham. Yeah, Paul Graham, one of the founders of Y Combinator, a very smart person, and this is the one thing I want to talk about. I want to try to get across. So what Paul Graham says is you don't need any expertise in your startup except for one. And the only expertise you need is to know your users. It's about to be the expert on your users. What does it mean? It means you want to know what they want, know how they think, and know what makes them tick. And by the way, when you ask them, sometimes when they tell you what they want, it's not always necessarily what makes them tick. You need to try to get both. If you get that right, and you're an expert in that, your startup will have very high chances to succeed. I know it's very pretentious to say, but I strongly believe that's the case. Before we jump into the concrete examples, this is called the growth pyramid. It was established by Sean Ellis, a very famous growth person, and he's talking about the different growth stages of the company. This is the first stage, and then it goes to later stages of growth. My examples are going to be about the first stage, which is product market fit. Anyone wants or needs clarification about product market fit? Okay, so yeah, product market fit is the first stage in this pyramid. I think it's probably the hardest one. Most startups don't reach it. It's very hard to think of something new, put it out there, and actually users like it and use it and want it. It's a pretty hard thing to do, and we're going to talk about some examples of trying to reach the product market fit. So my heroes. My heroes tries to solve a very basic problem. You're looking for, let's say, an architect. You open the app, you click a button, and you immediately see 20 architects your friend have already used and who they recommend and who they don't. 3 seconds, you get all of that. Amazing, makes sense. This is a huge problem. It's been around for 30 years. No one has been able to solve it. There have been hundreds and maybe thousands of startups who tried, and no one up to date has solved this problem. And this made total sense to me, and I said, hey, I'm going to do it. So we opened My Heroes. And I talked with some people and investors, and after a while, I got some money from very good angel investors. Wasn't a lot of money, but I got some money. I made a plan, a very lean plan, and I thought I'm going to have 12 months run rate for the company, and I knew that if I want to make the next round, and I need time for the round, I have to show some very good traction within 6 months, which is not a lot of time. The service provider, like apps, is a very tough industry, and getting a user even to download an app can cost more than $20. I already knew that. That's a lot of money. I mean, if you think about it, if you come and, I don't know, promote an app saying, hey, do you need an app to get a plumber? And you think, wait, maybe I need a plumber 2 months from now. I'm going to stop everything I'm doing now and run and download your app. It's probably not the case. It's a very boring need, and you usually don't need it now. It's a pretty tough situation. I also had, I don't know if it's 1.5 or sometimes 1.2 developers. I had a huge team. Endless resources, as you can see. So this was my starting point, and I think I understood it. And I thought, okay, how do I go about trying to reach traction within 6 months? Now, what do we usually do as entrepreneurs? The first thing we hopefully do is fall in love with our idea, which is great. But the second thing we do is we fall in love with our solution. We have this idea how we're going to solve the problem, and we are sure that this is going to be amazing. So what we do is we take all the resources we get and the money we took maybe from investors, if we have any, and we go and we build this product, which is an amazing product. We spend 4 months, 6 months doing it. And then we launch the product. We take it out to the market, and what happens?
It fails.
It doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. So we say, hey, I know what's wrong. I'm sure I know what's wrong, right? It's just one thing I need to fix. So we do the fix, and we take all the team around, and we spend 2 or 3 or 4 more months, and we build the second version, and we take it out to the market, and what happens?
It fails.
It doesn't work, right? So, I'm sorry, this is really like the stats, okay? This is how things are, sorry. So, I understood that, and I didn't have that time, I didn't have that money. So I understood I need to work differently. So I told the team, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna have a month, which is the 6 by 30 months. What does it mean? It means we're gonna launch 6 different products in 30 days. We're going to take it out to the market, and we're going to see what makes our users tick. How we're going to do it? The first thing we do is we take 48 hours, we brainstorm inside the room, we don't go out of the room, and we brainstorm 20 different concepts of how you build a solution to the pain we are trying to solve. 20 different ways of telling the story to the users, of how the solution works, etc., etc. This was a marketplace, but mainly the play is a consumer play, and with consumers, by the way, a lot of times the decision we make have a lot of emotions in it, so we were trying to talk to different emotions. We took the 20 ideas, merged them down to 6 different products. Our main developer sat down for 4 days, and he built like a framework, like a skeleton of a product, like the core functionality, very basic, very patchy. And every 4 days, we put on top of it a different story, different UI, different message, and we launched it for 4 days to the Android Play Store. We got the reaction from the users. We went back and we launched the second concept. So we did that for 4 months. This is an example of a concept of the product. It's called 7. You have only 7 people to choose. Who are your 7? Right? You download an app, you can only choose 7 people you trust the most to share your recommendations with you. Think about you getting an invite. Yoav chose you to be one of his 7 people he trusts the most. Will you join? Okay? This one was talking about vanity, about scarcity, about friendship, about trust. Those are the emotions this app tried to elevate. Another option is angels. We all know gamification. Angel was a concept basically saying, okay, you download the app, and the more you share, the more you help the community, you go up the ladder until you reach heaven, right? You become an angel. That's another concept. So all in all, we had 6 different concepts, each of them targeting different emotional triggers. It was the altruism, the give, it was a get, it was a concrete action, you have to do something now. It was curiosity, someone invited you, but you don't know whom. 7 and angel, we talked about them, and we had those 7. And what we saw is if you're trying to solve the same problem, and you are taking different stories, different ways to solve it, the way the users react was different. It wasn't different, it was completely different. It wasn't 20% different. We had 500% difference between those different concepts for the same problem. 500%. Which one was the winner?
7.
7? 7 was very strong. It came number 2. Any other guesses?
Angel.
Oops. So this one actually messed up. It's curiosity. Very, very strong driver in consumer products. One of the 2, 3 most. And 7 came number 2, but still, you see 7 came like almost 50% less in performance. So huge differences with just the way you build your product. Huge differences. And if we would have chosen, I don't know, this one, because that's what we thought was cool, we would have spent 4 months, launched, and what happened basically is we were able to launch. We built the product around this. The concept is not only about curiosity, it was a different product. And we launched it, and we were able to bring 100,000 users in the US with a marketing budget which our competitors, which raised much more money, would have brought 1,000 users, okay, for the same problem. And we were able to reach the milestone in the very initial track and we wanted, and raise the next round. And what happened is because we were focused on learning about our users and how they react with the product and not what we think about the product, when we built it, we already had 1 check mark on one of the KPIs working, and it did. I'm going to go to one more example. Before that, My Heroes made the next step, and another one afterwards. It didn't go all the way. We had other challenges later on for another lecture. So one more quick example. After that, one of the investors asked me to help a company named Shamir. I don't know if you know. It's a very big company. It's industrial. One of the largest manufacturers of like glasses. He had 3,000 employees, around 20 companies, and they built custom lenses for glasses. And they had a very cool idea. They wanted to go consumer, and they said, okay, here's the idea. We have an app. You download the app. It tracks your lifestyle for 2 weeks. If you are running, if you are walking, if you work in front of a computer, rain, fog, sun, whatever, after 2 weeks, it gives you like, this is a customized prescription for your lifestyle, for your lenses. Pretty cool idea. And they were very in love with their solution, so they spent a year building heavy technological stuff. And I met them after a year, and I talked with the CEO, and he said, listen, we spent millions. We don't have an app yet. We're trying to launch a partnership with 2 of the largest retailers in Europe, and none of them is ready to sign up. So this is the situation. I said, listen, give me some small budget in a month. And what did I do? And they didn't have almost any interaction with the users about the product. They were all about building the product like very heavily. So we did something very similar. Again, took a small team, different concepts for the product, different messaging, how to do it. And then we started preparing the test. We also tried different locations, different locations, sometimes the same product on different locations. Different cultures can react differently to the product. And this is a flow. I'm not sure I'm going to have the time to show an example of one of the tests we did. But basically, I didn't have an app. I didn't have the product. So what we did is we tried to measure the intent by giving you a message, afterwards giving you a very clear description what the app will do, and it's an app, and a big download button, right? Clicking it shows a very large intent of how interested you are in downloading. Afterwards, I don't have a product, right? So I said, sorry, but you can subscribe to be our first alpha user. It's still in development, and we actually did collect alpha users and send them the app after we launched. And after all of that, what you get is a matrix, a big matrix of the different messages, the different audiences, the different target, the different everything. In this case, you get a lead cost. You see the difference between $40 to $4. So we reached a very good result of $4. It's a very good result in this industry. And what happened to Shamir is they came to their partners with that, and after 2 weeks, they signed 2 deals because the retailer suddenly saw numbers, saw traction, saw a story coming alive, except for just being a story. And he said, I want to join this. It sounds like this is going to succeed. So they signed it, and they really, by the way, it was really a good indicator. So what I want to sum up before the question, by the way, this is me. Feel free to ping me on anything you want. I think that those are examples, right? Maybe some of them can be relevant, but some of you are B2B, and some of you are in different verticals. The main point, I think, is, I think a CEO of a startup, what you want to do is at least once every week or once every 2 weeks, stop for a second, and you need to think how you can learn more about your users and what makes your product work with them, and try it out. It doesn't matter if you're B2B or B2C, it doesn't matter what vertical, because if you're going to stop and you're going to think about it, you're going to find, just like Yoav said, if you're going to put it in front of you and focus on it, you're going to find ways to accelerate the way you test it. It's all about accelerating. The more interaction and test you do with the user, the faster and more chances you have to solve that product market fit problem. Thank you. Questions?
You said that curiosity was the fastest growing approach, but as far as I can see, this is a growth hack, let's say. What about retention and engagement after doing this curiosity, because this app is...
Great question, great question. So first of all, just to say an app can, or like a product can grow, or... Yeah, the question was, you were talking about curiosity, but it's more a growth hack for acquiring users. What about retention and traction and the later stages of product market fit, right? It's a very good question. So, first of all, when you need to grow a product, sometimes it's through acquiring user, like in this case, I'll explain why. Sometimes it's about just building the right product and focusing there. For that, because it was a marketplace with a social, we needed to do like what's called seeding, enough people in the same area. So it was very important for us as the first step, okay? Establishing those critical mass. We did reach the second KPI as well. So we did have, those users were very good, they were very active. But marketplace, as probably at least some of you know, has a lot of different KPI that need to run together to make it happen. That's why it's so hard. We reached some of them. We didn't reach all of them. We needed more money for that, and that's a different story. So the answer is you're right. This one was for the first stage of reaching like the first KPI for marketplace. We reached that one, reached that one. We didn't reach all of them to make everything work together, which is very hard.
What was your business model? Because if I recommend to my friend the name of, let's say, an electrician, he can reach out to that electrician. He doesn't need your involvement.
Yeah, the question was, what was the business model of My Heroes? The business model was that when you reach an electrician through us, we are going to get a rev share of the deal.
Yeah, but what is my incentive to reach to you instead of just reaching out?
So what the stats are, and still today, that 90% of us, the people, when we take a service provider, we do it through recommendation from a friend.
I agree.
So if this electrician, which is good, the problem is that you don't reach all the 20 friends you have to ask them. You don't survey that. That's too much time, too much friction, right? This app allows to accelerate this and bring, hopefully, the right person and a good person to you, which if you wouldn't have had the app, maybe you wouldn't have known about it. You probably wouldn't have known about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi.
My question is about in order to do product market fit, you have to be attentive to your customers, and you also have to be very efficient. But how did you manage to work that fast to develop like 7 examples of the product and then to launch it? Because like you have a lot of
Yeah, I think for that it's really like the Israeli growth hacking. So you basically put up, I'll be honest, you put up an app which has the functionality. It's not that it doesn't have anything, but it's very, very basic. It's not an app, I'm sure. I mean, someone here said shitty app, right? But it does give the functionality. Your challenge is really to get, in this case, in the story, we really invested on telling the story about what the app does and how it does it to kind of gauge the user reaction. But yeah, it was, and you can do it a lot of times, by the way. Last question.
How do you incentivize people to share who they like?
How did you incentivize people to share what they like, to share who they like? So there was a lot of friction. No one we start going through the contact and finding. So we actually find a way, which was we scanned your, if you allowed us, we scanned your, to remove the friction from the process, we scanned your address book, and we cross-matched, so we already knew who the service providers are, 90%, and we gave you a Tinder-like interface to kind of like, don't like, angel, not angel, and it worked very well. We got like 65%. Very, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Will you stay around for questions?
Sure.
Awesome.